All right, why don't we get going? I'd like to call this meeting to order. I will take a note. We don't have any minutes presented. Appointments, recognitions, and resignations. Confirm appointment of Stephanie Kelly Reese to the Land Use Advisory Group Committee.
I would move confirmation with thanks.
I would second that.
All in favor? Thank you. Consent agenda, department reports, highway, public works, updated holiday schedule for 2022, updated Board of Selectmen regular meeting schedule FY 21-22, MRC updates and MRC annual meeting information.
Would move we accept the agenda as presented.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Selectmen's report. Does anybody have a report? I do. So there's this thing called the, now it's drawing blank here, but it's a consortium, sustainability resilience group that we need to join in order to apply for grant funding. These are the grants that they were talking about, that Johanna was talking about at our last meeting. The first deadline is March 22nd. We can, if we apply as a town, we can get up to $50,000, or if we collaborate, we can get up to $100,000 between the two. But we have to show that we are committed by fulfilling certain things, and it's all in the RFA. Darrell was going to send you a link to that RFA, and I'll
Get it before the
I
next
tried
meeting.
forwarding it, but Matt, you're not on my phone anymore, so I don't know how.
I can send that out tomorrow.
Yeah.
Well, we can discuss, we're gonna do it next meeting.
Yeah,
We're
so
gonna talk about it.
yeah, and it doesn't sound like anything we have to wait for town meeting to.
No, you guys
do
are
it.
doing things
Yeah.
like that.
Who would write the grant?
We probably work with, say, Climate to Thrive, probably.
But this, you're talking about just an application to join first, right?
No, this is the
Oh, the
application is
actual-
for the money in March.
Oh,
And
okay.
so, but to be able to apply, we have to be actually part of this,
Organization.
recognized by the
doing
state
next
as
time?
being a bona fide organization.
Criminalizing
Actually,
his long-held witch hunt complaint by alleging this investigation is politically motivated.
Well, that's interesting.
Goodness.
So
Wow.
is this for a specific project, or we could work with another community to come up with?
You could do
this is,
whatever
yeah,
you
these are
want.
for anything from like heat pumps to,
Okay.
it's a broad range of stuff that we could get into here, but it's
These
all.
are her 4 kids. The Pope also assured her she had not lost her dignity.
Ellen's got that going in the background.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Okay, anyway. So,
So I'll send you that so you guys can
Great.
vote
Yeah, and then
next
we
time
can-
to join.
we
I
can-
think you have to write a letter of.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
I will.
I'll send you all that tomorrow. Let me make you a note.
Right?
Send the link,
all right.
BOS, 721.
Unfinished business, update on permit parking ideas from police department.
How we doing?
Good.
Good, thanks.
So I just wanted to give an update on where we're at from the last time the chief actually spoke to you about permit parking. We've since met with staff, both Public Works and the Harbor Department, to try to drill down just about how many approximate spaces we need. So we figured somewhere between 10 and 20, but we kind of want to look for a little bit more guidance from the board. Harvard has said that they are very much interested in helping with getting the permits electronic, to kind of go in with the handheld electronic citations that we're currently already doing here with the citations in Mount Reserve. But Harbor Committee still wants to have some input, so we're gonna have a meeting with them. They've already been in touch with Sergeant Ward, so we should have something with a Zoom meeting, I would assume within the next couple of weeks, probably in the beginning of the new year, to just kind of get their input. So we also met with the Economic Development Committee, as well as Kathy from MDI 365. And she actually volunteered to help with determining how many spots maybe aren't whole year-round rental population or year-round resident population of Main Street, Northeast Harbor. Because right now, we don't really have a good understanding of how many people are parking or need parking that's not allowed with their rentals. So, and we talked about the permit discussion with them and really tailoring it to making sure that these are year-round residents and not weekly rental type permits. And we have some figures from IPS, which is the parking permit software company, and they can really, what we're using in Bar Harbor for paid parking and permits, really can be tailored to have whatever this board decides that they want for permits. So including with the harbor committee, you know, if they want, you know, their mooring stuff and their boat owner permits, that's a special type of permit, so there's some configuration costs with that. But if the resident permits, and we wanted to tailor that to whatever the board wants, maybe a little bit more programming costs. But roughly all in for the add-on to the permitting is about $7,500, I would say maximum, even with the configuration costs. Some of that permitting or cost per permit could be passed on to a resident or whoever wants the permit. But that's going to also be kind of a board decision on whether the town wants to incur that cost to try to move forward with, you know, this pilot project. So the other part of this is the kiosk for the paid spots that the town is already doing with the police department for Cranberry or those offshore, if people want overnight permits. We are going to try to move to that to do all through the kiosk, and that's about $7,000. So currently in police CIP, we have about $25,000 that we have earmarked for this. So about $15,000 for permitting as well as the kiosk. We could be on a pretty good path to doing permitting and electronic payments and everything.
Great.
But so I guess I'll push it back to the board. I don't know, we should get some numbers back from Kathy through and the economic development as far as the number, but I don't know if 10 to 20 spots is something that's reasonable. I mean, exactly where the town would like to see those spots utilized. We've talked about the gray cow lot. Public Works had a little bit of concern about the snow removal or snow pile in the wintertime. We did look at the gray cow upper lot, so in and around, like behind the Maritime Museum, and we could take anywhere from like 10 to 12 spots up there if we wanted to try something. But then really truthfully is, you know, if we have, say we have 40 people that are year-round residents that need permits, is 10 or 15 spaces going to be enough? And what does the town really want to provide or take up out of public spaces permitted? So I guess that's my update. I answer any questions that you guys have, but just for discussion moving forward.
It sounds like you've done a lot, and it sounds like we're going in the right direction. I like what you're saying. I'm not sure where the parking should be. I think between 365 and the economic development, they probably have some thoughts about what would work best with your guidance.
Yeah, and they were good with the gray cow lot.
Yeah.
And there is, I mean, there's roughly, so on the, I guess it would be called the lower gray cow lot, so there's like 50 spots or so, or 40 up across, and then like 10 or 12 up the top. But it really is how many spots we want to pick as being permit only. And we have the ability to enforce it, you know, just with the plates, because that is technically their permit. And I guess that's, you know, from the town's perspective, is that too many, not enough? I know there's been some talk in informal surveys of how much spots are open there. But I don't know if we want to make a recommendation saying, but we could definitely try it and move on with more spots if it's going to be something that seems viable for year-round residents.
Was there thought also of the Public Works using the parking in the marina for the snow? Was that ever in a conversation?
I don't know if we talked about that. I know historically they put it up here. I think it has something to do with the distance from, for the runoff. I don't know that for sure. But I think that's why the great catalog's used
Yeah.
for the snow storage.
Right.
Well, I lived on Main Street for several years, and most of the year, it was never a problem for me. There was parking sort of on the side of that parking lot by Bar Harbor Bank and Trust. And so, but during the winter was the issue, because, there's no overnight street parking during the winter. And as the snowbanks build up, the spaces get fewer and fewer. So it was always like musical chairs. And the rest of the, during the summer when it's 2-hour parking is enforced there, I'm at work all day anyway, so it was never an issue for me. But to me, it's sort of that winter time is the issue, and sort of finding that sweet spot where we're not interfering with Public Works, getting everything cleaned out on Main Street, but still providing some solutions for people that are renting on Main Street without any sort of parking. And I did have one other resident that rented sort of around Main Street that brought this subject up to me a couple years ago, so I've always sort of had it in the back of my mind. But I'd rather start out smaller, and if you need to add some, do it. And I'll be interested to see sort of the Harbor Committee, what their input or sort of what they're thinking as well.
But in this time of year, I mean, the tennis court lot, by ordinance, it's open for overnight parking anyway.
Oh, okay.
But it is a distance from the resident community, and so, and we talked about it with the police department. Not that we don't want to say seasonally you have to park one place, but it definitely is consistency to have spots that are year-round and dedicated for it, rather than shifting people around, seasonally. But that's something we could look into too, if that's something the board wants to consider.
I think probably the more straightforward,
Yeah,
the easier it will be for everyone.
yeah.
And I agree, like,
Consistency.
starting small, and
Yeah,
if we find that that's not an issue, I would rather add more rather than try to take them away.
And I think one more important thing to note, and this is just sort of, if you hear it at the gas station, it's like reading it on Facebook or something, so it must be true. But the concern that we were talking about spaces on Main Street, and I'm assuming that's sort of off the table, and I would think the rest of us would probably
oh, yeah.
go
Oh,
along
actually
with this.
on the Main Street
Yes,
itself?
yes,
Yeah, I feel like it's gotta be
Right,
the
sort
lots,
Yeah,
just because of cleanup too.
yeah, exactly.
So I think what we'll do is kind of move forward with the 10 to 15 spot, depending on what we get back from MDI 365. But we'll kind of get some language together for the ordinance changes, work with the town's attorney, and then we'll bring that back to you
Great.
folks.
great.
Terrific.
I think that makes sense.
Great,
Okay,
thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
Great.
Okay, update on proposed construction of a dry hydrant in the area of Pond's End to be used for fire suppression purposes. Is Mike on?
He's here.
Oh,
He's
there
here
he
in
is.
person.
Mike's here.
Do we want to? Yeah, okay.
Just update, we're slowly moving ahead with this project. I contacted, we met, Tony and I met on Pond Grand. We looked the area over, we think we found a spot that's possible of putting in a dry hydrant. As I mentioned in the memo, I made contact with DEP. They seem to think that we can do this with a permit by rule, in lieu of the full permit process, which is great. And so we've contacted the civil engineer, and he's willing to get us a proposal together. And I suspect I'll have that probably sometime in February.
Great.
Terrific,
Thank you.
that's great.
Am I
Thanks.
mistaken that we were looking for a more sort of comprehensive look at the town's dry hydrant situation and other, is this just?
You're not mistaken.
No,
But
you're
I
not
think this was the immediate issue that Mike
Well,
wanted
yeah.
to take care of.
Okay.
Where we had a complaint, but I think, and Mike's pretty busy, I would
Yeah, I
guess.
imagine.
But I think in the long term, yes, we talked about maybe hiring a consultant who
Right.
could come in and take a look at the town as a whole and see where we were missing
Okay,
other things.
Yeah, I would almost say that the Pond's End is gonna be the ideal location for a dry hydrant, even if the consultant comes in and looks at the whole geographic area. The only way you wouldn't put a dry hydrant there is if you decide to put public water.
You're talking though about.
Well, yeah, I mean,
early
I guess I'm assuming that that would be the case also, that if we waited till a consultant came in and surveyed the whole area, he'd say, well, definitely there, and you're assuming that as well. And so moving forward with this makes sense to me, as long as we're not saying, okay, now we're cross that off the list. We're not done with this.
No.
Okay,
Right.
thank you.
Right.
That's all I was just, when I read that, I'm like, wait, that doesn't,
Yeah.
not how I remember.
I was
No,
glad to
it's-
see how quickly that.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Yeah.
That's terrific. Thanks, Mike.
Yes.
Update to the select board of proposed dry hydrant installation, the area known as Pond. Okay, well, here we are.
I think we
Double
skipped
bill.
one.
Hold it.
Yeah,
Mr.
I
Chairman.
think there was a,
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I apologize for the incorrect text. This should be notification that the bid invitations were released for Station 1 and Station 3. Actually, Station 1 will be going out this week.
Okay.
Station 3 went out last week. I sent the correct memo to the town clerk.
Yeah, we have the
I sent
memo.
the
Yeah, but it's
text
not
and,
on the
that should
agenda.
have been
It's
for
an agenda item,
saw
so my apologies for that. But it's just a notification, those bid invites that go out.
Good. Okay, I thought I was hallucinating there.
Well, yeah.
All right, good. Yeah, I did read that in the packet.
Yeah,
New business, request authorization to purchase new rifles, replacing existing inventory for $8,258.57 to be released from Police Department Equipment Reserve Account 4040100-24405, which has a balance of $84,480 as of October 31, 2021, with for permission to expend those funds as outlined in the memo from Chief Willis dated December 14, 2021. John?
Yeah, replacing what we intended to do it last year. And I just want to point out in my memo, I made a mistake. You'll see it says 885,000 for the account balance. I had an extra 8 in there. I
Yeah.
apologize, but we got it right on the agenda. This will, currently we keep our rifles in the cruisers, and everybody just kind of uses the same ones, and it's a little rough on them, they get banged around. And this new plan is aligned with Bar Harbors, so they're all doing the same thing, and this will issue each one of our full-time trained officers their own rifle to take care of, and should make them last a little better and be more reliable.
Mhm. Okay, what do we do with the old ones?
I was just thinking that.
Just asking.
Normally, we would trade them in.
Yeah.
We're gonna repurpose some of the sites, and we're gonna hang on to them until we do our next handgun purchase, which I believe is in 2 years, and we'll probably trade them in then. The dealer we're buying them from this time doesn't entertain that sort of thing, so we'll wait until we do it. Have them as spares. We have an armory locker downstairs, will be in there.
Mhm.
Makes sense.
Okay, I will take a motion.
I would move approval to authorize the purchase of the new rifles as explained.
Second,
All in favor? Thanks.
Thank you.
Consideration of the police department employee leasing agreement.
Thank you for the overview.
Well, yeah, okay.
This really is continuing what we've been doing since 2013,
Mhm.
having me be chief of both departments, but as you all know, it's much more integrated than that. That's why these guys are here. The change in this agreement this year is it not only shares myself and Karen Richter is our administrative assistant. Karen's a Bar Harbor employee, shared back. Her desk is actually downstairs here. It also shares Captain Kearns as the second in command for both. So if I'm not here, he will assume the role of chief for whatever reason. We also extended the term of the employee leasing agreement. We've done 1-year ones, 2-year ones, multiples, and this time we suggested 5 years, and the committee thought that was a good idea. That can anticipate retirements, other things, just so that the sharing and the level of service the communities are used to continues uninterrupted, regardless of who may be here or may not. I think the only other real major change would be that the exit clause has always been 30-day notice to either town, and we bumped that up to 90 days because I do not want to be the person that has to take this apart, because it's gonna take a really long time to do the things we put together. We just wanted somebody to be able to have good notice, have the department function for 2 or 3 months while the town's figured out what they want to do, and that was the purpose of that.
Yeah, okay.
Makes sense.
So you're cost sharing the 3 of us now instead of just the 2 of us.
Yeah. That's fine.
Any questions or?
I noticed a retirement benefit that had not been included in the past, so we've been paying the whole thing.
Yes,
Is that right?
that's why it's been corrected.
I know, but it goes back a ways, right?
It does.
Shouldn't we make that right?
I don't know how to do that.
It's hard to do when budgets are closed,
Yeah. How much is it
when audits are done.
roughly?
12 grand a year, 12 or 13 grand a year.
Oh, it's a lot of rifles.
Maybe they can pay the next 10 years.
Well, there might, I'm just
You've
saying.
also, I mean, I think nobody knows it better than we do, but I could nitpick that whole agreement and show you probably have equity.
Mhm.
You've been having his services for quite a few years and you haven't been paying for those. So it's we just haven't brought it. So this time we tried to say what seems to be the most holistic approach to make sure everyone's,
So it's not troubling you.
no,
Yeah, no,
Okay.
I'm not.
it's my retirement benefit we're
Then it
talking
doesn't trouble
about.
me. If you're okay with it, I'm okay with
Yeah.
it. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not gonna hold anybody's feet to the fire. All right. So do we have to make a motion to accept the agreement as written? or-
And I will tell you that Barb is voting on this tomorrow.
Okay,
Yeah, you
yes,
should, yeah.
I'd like a motion.
I would move we approve the updated police department employee leasing agreement as presented here this evening.
I will second that.
Great, all in favor? Thanks, Jim.
Thank you all.
Request to accept the $1,000 grant funds awarded from Bulletproof Vest Partnership and authorization to expend them. Yet again.
So sorry, I saved up my items for the meeting. The Bulletproof Vest Partnership is something we've done nearly my whole time here. And every year we come to you and we kind of get what the Department of Justice gives us. We don't really get to pick. And are there 2 separate items on the agenda?
Yeah, there are.
Yeah,
Okay, so the first one is to accept this year's award, which I think is around $1,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's still not quite finalized, because Karen's jumping through some federal government hoops, but it's $1,000, and I'm sure we're gonna get it. And if I can just finish, the next agenda item that you have, we checked with the town auditors, and we just know that we're gonna do this every year. So we said, can we get continuing approval? And the next agenda item asks us if it's okay with you for us to do this for the next 5 years. That's it.
Can we make 2 motions or
I
just
think we
one?
can bundle them together.
Well, I would move that we authorize the police department to accept the grant funding and authorize them to expend that grant funding on an annual basis at their discretion.
I will second that.
Good, all in favor?
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
For the next 5 fiscal years, that should be.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Request is authorization for recruitment for new, request authorization for recruitment for new firefighter positions. Wow,
Yeah, wow.
instant department.
So this is in conformance with the personnel policy, obviously, I could go to you, the authorization for new positions. We originally were gonna try to do this for July 1st, next fiscal year, but the ambulance, Northeast Star Ambulance Service came to us, about 3 or 4 months ago now, and they're on just saying that, although they had all intentions to try to get through next summer, they look like they're not even gonna be able to make it through, a lot of the spring and into the summer next year because of staffing shortages. So they've come to us and they said that instead of trying to staff up for the summer and slowly make that transition over from the Northeast Army Ambulance over to the fire department for EMS operations, we needed to start earlier than anticipated. So I explained to them that, well, we can't do much because I'm kind of locked in my budget until July 1st, and they have offered to pay for the funding for the wages, salaries, benefits, the whole works for 5 employees for the month of May and June, and then we pick up July 1st or the fiscal year after that.
Wow.
And can I ask Jake, would that work out if we approved all this? Would the gifting of the, okay.
Yeah, Mike and I have been talking about
Okay.
this. I don't see any issue with that. We would need an approval from y'all to accept the gift.
Right.
Yeah, we have, I'm sorry to interrupt, but
Yeah, go ahead.
I failed to say that this is going to be on, the gift will be a warrant article on the March 8th special town meeting. That's the intent. Because it does have to be accepted by the voters as a condition of gift.
Okay.
So we've got attorneys working on the draft warrant out. We have been meeting both sides, the attorneys for the Northeast Army Ambulance, attorneys for the town, working through this for the past couple months, trying to get everything together for that March 8th special town meeting.
Yeah.
If you approve this tonight, we're going to start advertising in-house tomorrow, and then push it out outside advertising probably 2 weeks after that.
Mm-hmm.
What happens if you hire these 5 new people and then something in that March meeting doesn't pass for these 5 new positions?
We're going to make it known in the
Okay,
that it's contingent upon passing at the March 8th meeting. There's also another hurdle that we have to get by, because there's always that risk that the voters will not pass the budget July 1st. So it's a possibility we could be asking some people to work for the town for a couple months. So there's a lot of moving parts here, but I can't really see any alternative. They're screaming, they're telling us that they're going to be hurting staff-wise, and keep these ambulance running. Somebody's going to have to bring some people in.
Well,
Does this have to do with the COVID mandate?
I can't really speak for the ambulance. I'm assuming that some of it, but, you know, the volunteer, just like volunteer firefighters, volunteer EMTs, it's getting harder and harder to get people to come on board. Not breathing them, paying very well now too, and it's still hard to get people on. So, you know, we've seen it in the fire department, and I know they've been struggling for probably a couple of years now, trying to get staff on, as well as almost every EMS agency in the state. It's the same predicament.
This is Basil here. Can I speak to that?
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Basil Haney with the ambulance service chief. So, I mean, obviously we had kind of projected over time that, you know, we were going to start struggling, you know, with the personnel that we had. And unfortunately the pandemic and, you know, the vaccine mandate really was kind of one of the final nails in our coffin that way, I guess. We see that we're really not going to be able to, you know, have the staff available to get through the summer. And with the statewide staffing shortage as far as EMTs goes, it's just, the outlook is not real good. And we just didn't want to put the town in a situation where we tried to get through the summer. And then we just kind of weren't able to do it right in the middle of the summer when you really need us to be at our best. So we just thought it was important to kind of lay the groundwork for the town now to kind of get out ahead of it. While we were still, you know, functioning and able to help out, you know, with what we could, but try to, you know, get the town able to get the staff on board to be ready to handle the summer influx of calls. And just, it's unfortunate. It's not what we wanted to do, but it's kind of what we felt like we needed to do. And so it's kind of where we are.
Yeah.
You're gonna be able to find them?
No. Don't know.
Yeah.
We're pulling from the same pie as everybody else in the
Right.
state.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I can't imagine it's going to be hard to get this through the budget process. I mean, it's pretty clearly a no-choice situation, unless people don't want an ambulance.
Right, that's really gonna be the choice, probably. Well, You'll always get an ambulance, it's just how long we're willing to wait to get one.
All right,
Are the current firefighters all EMTs too? Like,
Full-time or?
full-time, the current
Full-time? No. We have, well, I don't have my license, and we have one more that does not have a license. He's scheduled to go to New Hampshire in March for 4 weeks to get his EMT training and
Okay.
license. So all 4 of the full-time that would be working shifts.
And when you say you're gonna post within first, it's both with current EMTs that are volunteers, right? And volunteer firefighters, that's your pool?
We are. Personnel policy says town employees only, but as a courtesy, we are going to include the Northeast Hardly Ambulance staff too as well. So they'll be getting notification of in-house posting, just as well as all the fire department.
all right, any more discussion? Okay, motion?
Well, I've moved that we authorize Chief Bender to advertise and recruit for those positions. Reluctantly, but I would, I think we don't have a choice, and I hope it all goes through and doesn't ruffle any feathers. But I would move that we approve Chief Bender's recruitment and hiring of new firefighter positions.
Oh, I see, yeah.
I'll second it. And then I have one more question.
Yeah.
If, say you had 3, you would move forward with those 3 and keep a position open-ended? Like,
Yeah, typically you would repost again,
okay.
until you fill those.
And we had already decided that in July, we had already sort of said we were gonna look for 5 anyway, right? Is that the same number?
Well, no, originally, before the ambulance came to us and said, we're gonna space operations, I was gonna try to have 2 full-time firefighters on every 24 hours. So we would have staff of 6.
Okay,
Now we're looking at 3, 4, 9, if we can get Bar Harbor co-staff at some of the fire station business.
No, we can only do that on.
and it will be 9 firefighter EMT or 9.
Yeah, the advertising, like you'll see the post go out tomorrow, we'll, if you have your EMT license, but you're not firefighter once you're certified, typically we give it every 6 months to get your certification. Vice versa, if we have a firefighter, certified firefighter applies, they may have 6 months to get their EMT license.
All right, thank you.
I'd just like to add to, thinking about this, obviously, it's a problem no one wants to ever have to deal with, but if you think about the way the ambulance service, which, Basil, how long has the ambulance service been around?
1938.
Okay, so I'm not gonna do the math in my head, but for quite a while, and we've got a town department, and what we should be thankful for is they're sort of working together and meshing everything together, because a lot of times, especially in small communities, this is where you have arguments about things, and their focus is just the same. So thank you, Basil, and everyone there, and Chief Bender. This is going smoothly, and hopefully
Thanks,
that.
Yeah, and
turns
I
out
think,
well.
being honest, like moving forward, like realistically trying to help this community before, like Basil said, it's the summer and it's crucial, so. Thank you.
Any more discussion? All in favor? Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
A review and possible adoption of the town of Mount Desert Boston cane policy.
Okay, so I did some research of other towns in Maine that have a written policy, and I kind of compiled something that looked like it would fit our community, and I put a draft in your packet. You can amend the times and the age. I did some research also in my voter record, and we had one candidate that is significantly, 3 years, at that age, 3 years or more older than the next ones in line. So I put their names out to you. And I also found that other towns will post a notice in the paper. We haven't typically done that. You know, our tradition mostly has been to go to voter records and common knowledge, like if we know. And it's always been restricted to year-round residents and residents that have lived here a significant amount of time. Some towns require up to 25 years of being a resident, a year-round resident. And over 90 years old. All our candidates are always over 90. So I don't know if we need to put that in the policy or not.
Yeah, we can, we can tweak this going forward, but
I don't see why not.
This is a good first step. As for the kind of furniture you want to buy to mount the cane or lock the cane up or whatever, I stay out of those decisions.
Okay.
Okay. Whatever you think looks nice and will fit somewhere and achieves whatever you want it to achieve.
Okay.
I thought 25 years was a long period to say. I don't know, maybe 15 or 20 years to me. I mean, there are people that are retiring here that really become a part of the community. Maybe they already had some connection to the town. I don't know, it just seemed like it limited it, but maybe we have plenty of candidates, so we don't need to spread the net any wider. That was my only
I
thought.
think those were just some ideas
I
to
understand,
throw out. They
but-
weren't
Right,
necessarily a recommendation.
Does seem like a long time.
yeah,
Well,
but we're talking about it, so that's why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have to disagree with John on that. I don't think we need a whole case for, I would just say hang it up somewhere where it's visible, if we could.
I am real hesitant to that. It has walked from other towns. The cane has been snatched from other towns or lost, so I think we would want to display it. It's an important piece of historical significance, but I think it should be locked in its display.
I think I see what Martha's saying here, and the nice thing about, and maybe it's a case or something on the wall, but the nice thing about that is you can get right up to it, and it sounds like we're gonna have something there explaining the significance of it and what it is. And I would hope it, wouldn't walk out. I mean, we might have to ask Chief to order an extra rifle, I don't know. But I think, because I just, like, what part of the building do you think we display it in?
Well, Sterling's kind of set the meeting room up as sort of a historical,
Meeting room.
so I was kind of thinking either in the front area of the lobby area of the town office, or maybe in here. The benefit of being in the town office is that you've got a lot of eyes all the time.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're in here, you never know.
I don't want to promote heresy or anything, but I would think it would be appropriate to have it at the library.
That's a good point,
too. There are a lot of historical records and artifacts over there. And
Or the Historical Society too.
Yeah.
So
That's a
anyway,
good
but
idea.
we're, as Wendy pointed out, this isn't something we need to rush into.
Right.
I appreciate
Well,
the
it's
work.
a
I
lot
think
of
this
work,
is
and I
really
appreciate
great.
it.
That was quick.
We've got
Jump right on
names.
it.
I think we're in
Yeah.
I have been researching it for the last couple of years, and it just seems like, okay, now's a good time to pull it all together.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I did that, and also, I talked about issuing a coin or lapel pin or something in lieu of the cane. And I had a mock-up made.
Wow.
So you
Boy,
can
you
have
are
a
prepared.
visual.
Wow.
And again, this was last year, so I didn't do this just in 2 weeks.
Oh, no.
No, but you've
Wow,
obviously
she
been
really
thinking
is
about
right.
it
Got your
too.
smelter out. and-
No, I did not do this.
Hold it up to the owl so the folks at home can see.
Oh, that's nice.
Well, they can't see it, it's
Let's
too.
see.
We'll focus on it.
So I'll let you pass it around. The top of the cane is gold. So I gave them the cane so that they could see what was inscribed on it and sort of make not really a replica, but
Yeah, that is
Close.
nice.
That's it.
Could you get it so you could put it on a ribbon or something like
They
that?
can do whatever you want.
Oh, yeah.
It's a jeweler, so it would cost more money to add either a pin or a chain or
Yeah.
something. Chains are a couple $100 for a
But I
good.
think like you said, if we could get a hole in it and then put it on a
And they could
ribbon, like
decide.
that's something you can hang on the
Oh.
wall, you can put it, you
Right.
could if you
Yeah.
needed to
So
wear it.
this is solid gold, 10 karat.
Yeah,
So I don't think we want to go that route. It's pretty expensive. So
Yeah.
I talked to Sam about gold plating.
Yeah.
Like over brass or something, and that cuts the price by half.
so what is the price of that?
That's it's between 900 and 1,000,
Oh, my God.
depending on the price of gold and whatnot.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I haven't seen it yet.
I don't know, that seems reasonable to me,
Which,
$900. I mean,
That
we're not
doesn't
doing it
seem
every year.
reasonable to me, I'm sorry.
Well, that's a lot of
I
money.
think that's
All right,
pretty,
okay.
I mean, the whole idea of the cane was
Right.
they got the cane, and I understand the impetus, I think it's a nice thing to give them, to display the cane, since gets lost, and give them some token, but to me, giving a nice thing and calligraphy on a piece of paper with a stamp that's from the town would be as.
Or a heavy
Me-
brass medallion. I mean,
Something,
you know.
but I don't think we need to spend $1,000.
No, I agree with you.
I just think it's a lot of money.
The chances are it's probably gonna get
Well,
lost or misplaced.
lost or, yeah, they'll only be able to enjoy it for.
so
Well,
are you thinking maybe just a certificate
Because you're
and
dropping
not?
like.
No, I think the certificate with something,
I think a little keepsake, yeah.
I do, I like them in.
Brass.
Yeah, something heavier,
It,
but.
yeah, it doesn't have to
less
be a super
expensive.
precious metal, but it would look nice, and
Right.
it's something, I worry about something like that. At some point, if their heirs are going through things, they're gonna look, well, what is this? And it's just gonna end, little will they know, it could be
Well,
worth
we've been
$1,000.
fortunate that didn't happen with the cane yet,
Right.
because in many towns,
Yeah.
it has disappeared.
Huh.
it's
Like-
funny you say that, cause I looked after the last meeting, I was doing, and it happens a lot.
Yes, that's
they-
why I really want to protect it.
And I appreciate, cause I never would have thought of that, but it really, in most
Yeah.
cases, it gets
Oh,
handed out and
sad
never
world.
comes back.
Yeah, so
I know.
it's in our vault right now,
Huh?
locked in the vault, double locked.
Okay.
Just don't lock the recipient in the middle.
I mean, we can, at a ceremony, present the cane, just with the
Yeah.
Right.
understanding that it's not staying.
Yeah, no, for pictures only.
Yeah, and, let's see. So I didn't know how, again, in the policy, I had kind of written up what other towns have done for determining, who's eligible and how to search for them. If you want us to stick with what we've been doing, which is just go through our voter reg records and, if there's common knowledge, or if you want more formalized, like what's written in here, and then I had, I think, a copy of the application that somebody could complete. We could post a notice in the paper. and
I
give
think
it 30
posting a
days.
notice is a good idea, because I think, we might not have records for everyone that.
Right, if they don't
No,
register
yeah.
to vote, I won't
Right.
know.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's best to post a notice and
And on Facebook or whatever. Yeah.
on the webpage and.
So you have the list of candidates that I'm aware of, and I'll put the ad in the paper for next week,
Okay,
I think that'd be great.
and then come back to you after 30 days and
Yep.
Sure.
present what I found.
Sounds good.
good. Do you want a motion from us to
Because
move
that, we
forward with
could
this?
be, theoretically, if we're gonna have a special town meeting in March, we could be looking at the
If they're willing to
possibility.
come out for it,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay,
So, yeah, I guess I just want guidance from you as to how you want me to move forward, and if you want any amendments to that policy, what you would like to see amended.
I have a question. In
Go ahead.
the past, weren't we giving a cane, not a gold cane, but a cane?
No, it was the Boston cane.
What was
so we
that?
actually gave out the Boston cane, the one cane that the town got awarded or given to award to, but we're gonna present it, but because it often doesn't come back, we don't want to give the actual cane out.
Okay,
Like the Stanley Cup.
Yeah. Good keep it for a guy.
Right.
All right.
So do we need a motion?
Well, we're gonna be tweaking this as we go, I think, probably.
Why don't you
So-
give it some thought, and then
Yeah.
you come back, and you come back with that, you come back with your recommendations for changes that you can
Okay.
adopt.
Yeah, I think
Good
so.
idea. So this will be in our packet for next, whenever.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you want them to keep it, just pull it and put it in one of the pockets or something so that,
Well, I think, okay, yeah.
so what I understand is you would like me to put an ad in the paper, or post the notice in the paper. Okay.
I think so, yes.
Yeah.
All right,
Thank you, Claire. Good-
thank you,
Yeah,
Claire,
thanks
awesome,
for
yeah,
doing
very
That's a
nice.
lot of work. Well, and obviously it's been on your agenda too.
It's been on my mind for a couple of years, yeah.
Okay, item G, request approval of $145,000 to be used from wastewater bond reserve account 4050500-24203 to subsidize the 10/1/22 principal payment on the MMBB CWSRF loan 2003 FFRS, and by extension, reduce necessary fiscal year 2023 appropriations as described in memo from Jake Wright, Finance Director. Could you give us a synopsis of what you said in the letter?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is an extension of what I presented a few months ago. The difference here is that I'm trying to take a proactive approach as opposed to in the past, we have budgeted based on what we are planning on asking for board approval to subsidize the payment. The problem with that is that
The big cat's worked out then, that's for paying, and the other two big guys are the town.
the problem is that if the board doesn't approve taking X number of dollars out of the reserve account, then our appropriations were insufficient to cover the cost. So because we're in the budget process right now, I proactively calculated what we traditionally pull out of the reserve account. And if we approve the reserve funding right now, then that makes the budgeted amount in the 2023 budget that you're going to look at today make sense, and we don't have to have this game where if it doesn't get approved down the road, then we don't have another shot to do additional appropriations.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yep.
I read through it, I would move that we approve the plan as it's laid out in the memo to use use the reserve account to subsidize the principal payment and by extension to reduce the necessary fiscal year 2023, all the rest of that.
I would second that.
Okay. And this is kosher, Durham? We don't need a town meeting to
No.
move this? Okay,
You can do this yourselves.
all
It just
right.
makes it more predictable, right? I mean, it really, it just
Yeah.
makes it, so it's easier to, yeah,
Well,
there's no choice.
planning.
yeah,
Correct.
I mean, there's no choice in the long run.
well, yeah.
Pay it anyway.
Right.
The only problem with not doing it is that these were designated funds, and they're not the type of designated funds that the town meeting could amend and change the purpose. These were given to us as a gift from Acadia National Park for this specific purpose. So we have to use these funds, otherwise they get trapped essentially. So we it's in our interest to use them.
I mean, the alternative would be to use the funds and use them up sooner than 3 years and then have to budget more heavily from the fiscal budget in the third year right?
Correct.
Yeah, which we don't.
So we've tried to divide it out by the number of payments.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Could I have a motion and a second to have any more discussion? All in favor? Great, thank you. Consider options to address the difficulty experienced by town employees to use accrued compensated absences due to COVID-19 and staffing shortages as described in memo from Finance Director Jake Wright.
This I don't really understand.
I
No, I
found
had
this
a hard time
confusing,
understanding.
Jake.
Okay. So the general problem that we're experiencing is that we're a small governmental entity. Everyone in the town essentially is serving pretty specialized jobs. If you go out, it can be hard for someone to fill your role while you're gone. As a result, we have a lot of really dedicated employees that don't really take time off because it's hard to do so. And especially with COVID and staffing shortages, we've seen people that are having trouble using their time off that they're earning. And this is a problem that I was confronted with when I came on board. Obviously, I haven't been here long enough for it to be a problem for me, but it's a problem I'm trying to solve for other people. My concern is that essentially we're taking the hardest working people in town, people that are showing above and beyond devotion, and they don't have access to this benefit that they're earning. And it really creates an adverse incentive for them to leave, because right now that's the only way for them to access the time that they've earned. And I think that's a problem to create an adverse incentive for people, for very dedicated employees to leave. And so an accrued absence cash out policy is a way that I've seen other municipalities deal with this issue, giving people access to time that they're unable to use. And so I'm basically bringing it to the board as an idea to move forward. The other option being that in the past, we've just been extending the timeline, that we are not enforcing caps and maximums on accruals because people are having trouble using them. And that's one option, is we can just keep pushing the, passing the buck, down the road and hoping that people are going to be able to use them. But COVID doesn't seem to be going away. Staffing shortages are still here, and people are still having a hard time using to use their accrued time.
Okay, so is this accrued time that was taken in lieu of overtime?
No, this is a
Vacation
time.
Yeah,
It's
Mr.
just
Chairman,
like-
I can help, Jake ran this idea by
Yeah.
me, and I think he ran it by me because he said I'm one of the problems. And it's just that I've been here a long time, so I earn maximum vacation time. I'm not eligible to earn anything other than my regular time.
Yeah.
If I work overtime, it doesn't matter, I'm on salary. So I think Derlin, the three of us, Mike, are all people that have really excessive accruals. Probably to the point that some of us are 3-4 times over our established limits.
Wow.
We made an attempt to correct it through policy a couple of years ago. I think Tony was here, and we tried to talk about it, and we set up some new rules we thought would help, and it just didn't. Jake didn't come to me about this idea until it was in your packet, but I see what he's trying to do. He's trying to manage a problem. My situation is a little better, but that largely is because of the agreement you signed. Now there is somebody that can be me, but it's pretty rare for one of us to take a week off. I don't take full weeks off because I have to be at a meeting or I have to be somewhere. And I think when we're in these small communities, town managers don't have an assistant town manager. Fire chiefs may not have an assistant that can do what he does, particularly when you're trying to build 2 fire stations, stand up an ambulance service. My hat off to you, chief. I am in a lot of the meetings that he's going to, and he is doing tremendous work for you guys. I don't know how he's doing it, but he needs a week off. And I think what Jake's trying to say is if he can't get his week off, let him cash it out. And we've never cashed it out here. I think that's always been thought of as a really taboo thing. I don't know where that comes from. And I don't think, I'm actually feeling a little awkward saying this to you. I don't know if I would much rather have a week to go camping next summer, but I'm probably not gonna get it. So I think that when we look at, remember a couple of years ago, we set up the reserve account to start funding these liabilities. This is, to me, an extension of the conversation. I'm not sure the specifics of the plan, but I hope that helps you understand what he's trying
Yes,
to do.
that's very helpful.
So this is earned vacation time that you
Yes.
just don't
Correct.
have time to take.
That's it. And the current policy says if I don't take it, I lose it. So
Yeah,
I
that's-
think Jake's
that's
trying to
not
say,
really- yeah.
let's not let them cash it all out, but every once in a while, let them cash some of it out, so it's manageable and you're back within limits.
So it would be a portion of the excess. Is that what you're talking about, Jake?
So the immediate problem is that we have people that are over the defined limits.
Right.
Beyond that, what I would kind of suggest is not just to go from excess to acceptable limit, but to have somewhere in between acceptable limit and zero that people are allowed to cash in. And that's kind of what I was looking for guidance on is, you know, how restrictive or aggressive of a policy would you like to see if you wanted to see one at all? There's numbers that can be ran, there's projections that can be shown, but I need some sort of guidance about what you would want a policy to look like if you wanted to see one at all. And just to tack onto the point about the fact that we funded this policy basically. We have a reserve account in place that is set up to fund 50% of our accrued absence or accrued compensated absence liability, which is represented on our balance sheet at the government-wide level. I would need to know more details about the policy to know whether or not that would be sufficient. As far as I can tell, it would be sufficient to implement a policy like this for the, you know, at least the coming fiscal year, unless we were saying, you know, you can cash it all out, which I don't think is what anyone is proposing or excited about.
So we just trim it back to an acceptable level.
Right, and I think what I would suggest is define one category as being the category that you have to have a base level, because we have several different types of accrued absences, you know, vacation, EPL, stuff like that. Every category that you want to put a base or a restriction on is going to be more administrative time on the HR side. So my suggestion would be take vacation, which is the most flexible accrued time, and say you can cash in if you've got, you know, 200 hours of vacation that you're unable to use, as long as you still have 100 left over, you can cash in the difference, something like that.
Sounds reasonable.
I would much rather see something like that than say you have to lose it. I don't think that's.
On the other hand, I think we want to make sure that we are encouraging people when possible to take time off rather than take a little extra money, because
I mean, that was
that's
the point.
very important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
I agree with you. I think this makes sense to me, and thank you for explaining, because I found this impenetrable. But and it was very helpful, Jim. But I want you to go camping for a week. I think that's important.
Well, I think we should make it.
Jeff's right. I mean, you know, you have to take a break, or you become less efficient. You don't sleep right, and you work yourself out. You know, you've got to take time.
Yeah.
But I also know exactly what it's like. I feel worse when I take time, because when I come back, it's 3 times as hard for me to get caught
I
up.
think the people that have this problem right now are the people that don't have that person, you know, nobody does my work if I'm not here. And nobody does Derlin's either, and so we get caught in this cycle, and I think the demands of the job in the last 5 to 10 years have just kind of led to it. I think it's easy to correct and get better at, but we kind of got a little crisis we got to work through.
And I think, like with what you talked about at the last meeting, just trying to keep your office open during regular hours.
Yep.
I mean, we obviously want people to take their time, but at least it's a itty bitty benefit that they've earned.
Well,
And don't some of the union employees, I mean, I can speak for my own, like, if he doesn't use certain hours at a certain time, he gets like, we do that for some of those employees.
Right, so this proposal would just be applying to the non-union currently. It would require a sidebar, I believe, to apply it to the union. There are components that currently apply to the union that
already protect,
that
yes,
kind of do
okay.
some of this, but not applying to the category of vacation.
Right, okay, that makes sense.
And on the point of, we want to encourage people to use their accrued time, I would advocate that setting the base level that you have to keep higher will incentivize people to take time, because you know, if you require, you still have to have 100 hours. That means that, well, what, I can't cash in any of that 100 hours, I should use it. So I think the higher you set the limit, the more you're incentivizing people to use their time, just as long as it is below, kind of what becomes excessive, like what Ben was talking about, and the problem that we're currently faced with.
I think, for me, I'd be most comfortable if you came to us with a proposal, a specific proposal incorporating the things you've been talking about. It'd be helpful.
Absolutely.
So there's no leniency. Like I'm in a position where I've got 8 days roughly 8 days I'm supposed to use by the end of the year. But there's a little bit of, like, I could take it in January if I need. The way our personnel policy is, there's zero tolerance for that. It's once you reach a certain level.
I can help you with a historical
Okay.
perspective. We used to be able to email the town manager and ask for permission. And,
Okay.
and I think that turned into an automated process, so we
Okay.
stopped emailing. And,
we currently are under a policy that is extending the enforcement of this. So no one's
Right.
missing vacation time now. It's a matter of, do we just keep kicking it out, or do we try to solve the root of the problem?
I think it's too much of a liability if we just kick it out there.
Yeah, I do too.
I agree.
Okay, that's really helpful. Everything we talked about gives me enough that I can do some modeling, I can draft some policy, come back to you in early 2022 with an actual proposal. But before I did that work, I wanted to see if this was something that you were interested in.
Thank you.
Yeah, good.
And again, thank you you've been a strong advocate for the working people under you and around you, and I noticed.
Thanks, sir.
Did someone
Okay.
have something to say?
No, she covered what I was gonna say.
Oh.
You covered what I was gonna say,
Okay.
I'm good.
All right, so I guess we should have a motion to direct Jake to continue.
So I would move to encourage Jake to continue on the path that you are. As a board, I think we want people to take vacation, but we also want people to have that benefit. And I'd like to just say, I think the base level on a high rate, like you said, that will still encourage them to take time off is very important.
Okay, good.
Second.
Good. All in favor? Thanks, Jake.
Thank you.
Review of general government marina and debt budgets for FY 22-23.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So we already did the first couple, the admin, and even though we didn't have the packets yet, right?
You did CIP.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
didn't,
we didn't do municipal.
you didn't do any municipal stuff. Right? And you didn't do the debt. So anything you get here new.
Just starting at the board of selectmen stuff.
Yeah, this is all new
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
for you.
yeah.
Okay.
Administrative.
One that starts with the selectmen, if that's the one we're on.
Yeah.
Martha, the other binder has it figured, do you
I got
have,
it.
oh, you have the
Yeah,
big one,
yeah.
okay.
Thanks.
It's stapled too, before that.
Yeah, no.
So what do we just
Weird to look at.
ask anything that stands out?
Yeah, any questions that you have,
So-
basically. All right.
I did have a couple of questions. In the first one on the board of selectmen, actually, I highlighted the secretary cost, but why is the secretarial cost for the board of selectmen so much different than the secretarial cost for the planning board?
Planning board meets more often.
Okay.
And longer.
Hours and hours and hours.
I noticed it was like
They have a-
twice as much.
They have a bigger legal budget too.
And I did notice that. That it makes more sense. And then the Board of Selectmen contingency fund.
Yes.
Can you explain what that is potentially for?
Well, for example, you funded an initiative at one time, the state of Maine was having something about equalization of property taxes, for example, and they were encouraging all of the municipalities to join. So the board used their contingency to do that. It's something that would be out of the ordinary that you wouldn't be able to expect, you couldn't see coming.
Yeah.
That you couldn't rationally budget for, because it's there. So-
Colorful
Okay.
crosswalks.
Yeah. So very often it doesn't get used, so it goes back into the general fund and we bring it back. But I think it's always a good idea to have that.
Yeah, it gives us flexibility to do some
Yeah.
things that we might be.
That you may not even imagine that you're gonna have to.
Well, that's
do.
sort of what, I'm just trying to, it's only, I'm still fairly new at this. If I, can I keep
Well,
asking?
keep going. Keep going.
The line item on recruitment,
Yeah,
I noticed that,
Where is that?
that's on the back of the first page.
Yeah, got that underlined also.
page 2 of 11.
Yeah,
So I was concerned that, in 2021 actual, we spent $18,000. And I think that was partially because we needed to fill the finance director position, correct?
Yes.
Well, I'm assuming that we're going to need to continue to spend some money recruiting for our town manager. And I was concerned that 5,000 may not be enough. Is that
Well,
unreasonable fear?
I'm hoping we won't be using that this year.
Okay. Okay, well, I just wondered, I just noticed that we haven't spent very much anyway.
I'm not anticipating, JFK once was asked a question at a press conference, and he was asked, Mr. President, do you like being president, and would you recommend it to others? And he said, the answer to the first part of the question is yes, I enjoy it, and the second part of the question is no, I wouldn't recommend it to others, at least not for a while. And that's sort of my philosophy.
Okay. I just noticed that, and I wasn't sure what any timelines were, but
I think that line item, however, is under budgeted. I think we don't
I
know
can put
what's
whatever
gonna.
you want in there, I
What-
can go right back and do
Yeah,
that.
I'm just thinking, it should be more.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the number is, but
Well, I
it
had
seems to me things are
7,500
gonna come up.
and
we're
it's
gonna
hard to
need
find
it.
people for anything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I had 7,500 in 22, do you want me to restore that?
I wouldn't go any less than that,
yeah,
All right.
yeah.
just
Are we gonna expect a recruitment line in public safety?
What's that?
Do we have a recruitment line in
This is
public
for-
safety?
this is
Or
for- This is recruitment across the town.
Across the.
Oh, across the board?
So, yeah,
I think
I
it's
think
not
we need
enough.
more.
I don't think
Go
it's
to
enough
10
at all.
I
I,
think it's gotta
We're
be
gonna
more.
try and hire 5 full-time
I
firefighters.
agree.
So you tell me what
Yeah.
you want in there and I'll.
10,000.
I would think 10,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got it.
We spent 18 on one, I'd say at least 20. We spent 18 on Jake.
I know.
I think
Well,
20.
that wasn't all,
Do you
Jim.
think 20? No, it wasn't, but.
No, but we got
Seven.
5.
But these are the
We're trying to
same
hire 5
positions.
guys. Huh?
It's not 5 different positions, so
But we
wouldn't
don't
it-
know what's gonna happen.
We don't know. And
And
We're not doing,
crazy.
we're not doing the same level of search
No,
that we're not doing like we're not hiring Eaton Peabody to,
Right.
but I
help
really,
us.
we're kind of
Find a
shooting in the
firefighter.
dark here, and I don't want to get caught short,
Are we? I think we are.
you know?
You tell me what you want to put in and I'll put it in. 10,000, 15,000, whatever.
I'd be happy enough with 20.
You'd like 20, is that a
I
consensus?
mean, we don't lose it.
I agree,
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay.
I
Comes
just
back
think
from
that
town
these are
anyway.
crazy times and it's very hard to find people.
And you
We
need to
don't
have
know
that
what's
money if you
gonna
need
come
it.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it could be carryover.
And if it's a
yeah,
15,000 too much, we can just roll it over.
Well,
Yeah.
it goes back into the general
Yeah,
fund
right.
for-
That's
for
fine.
reduction of taxes.
I think
yes.
20.
All right, 20 is, we got it.
Right.
I noticed that the overtime was budgeted up. I mean, the numbers are still fairly small on page 1. Just because we found that that's been necessary, is
Well,
that?
we used a lot, when Claire was absent.
Right.
We used a lot of overtime and things like that.
So you're just wanted for safety,
Yeah.
keeping it, okay,
Yeah. I mean, it's one of these things, Martha, you just can't predict.
Right.
I'm making a guess, but that guess is not necessarily.
Well, and with
going to come
COVID
true.
still
It's-
into the reality, so.
And just to fill you guys in, before everyone got here, I was talking to Jake about, we have a bunch of line items that show up multiple times, like legal, like software.
Postage, right.
And we're just talking about the wisdom of maybe have it appear as one line across the town. And Where do we leave that? You're gonna think about
It's
that?
something that I can definitely, look into, and it's not gonna be something that would be possible in this budget year, but it would require a little bit of movement on our chart account, but if that's the direction that we wanna go, I'm happy to do it, it's something that I'm very excited about. It's really that, there's nothing wrong with it from an accounting perspective, it's just that we need to make sure that we're providing information relevant for making decisions, and if condensing these repeat items doesn't inhibit your ability to make decisions, then I don't see any reason to spend the time breaking it down into smaller and smaller buckets.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I feel like most of these items are pretty necessary. You know, you've gotta have postage.
Yeah,
So I kind of agree with John, and
that's a perfect example. That's the one that I would have gone with as well. Are we gonna not fund the fire department because they use too much postage? No.
right.
So, you know, why can't we just do postage as a general government item? If you guys, if that want to change your ability to run the government, then I think it's a great move.
Yeah.
So my next question is line 231, historical preservation. What is that? $15,000, line 231.
Yeah, that's where I take the really old books in the vault, some that are over 100, 200 years old, and I periodically send them out to a preservationist who specially treats the paper so it doesn't disintegrate and crumble.
Okay.
Rebind the leather. I have the books digitalized as we go so that we don't have to maybe handle them as much, just to preserve them. So those are our historical records locked in the vault.
Okay.
Yeah.
With the cane.
I just
With
wondered,
the
I was like, what are we
cane.
preserving for 15 grand? Okay.
Yeah, we've been doing this for what, like the last 10 years we've been.
Well, Joel, I don't know how long ago that they started doing this, but I've carried forward and I actually bumped up the project instead of just rebinding the books and treating the paper. I am now working on digitalizing all the stuff so that we have a digital record of everything. And so that's quite a bit more expensive than just rebinding a book.
Right.
So that's why the line item's up, but eventually I will be finished with that project and then it won't be such a big item.
I'm gonna zoom way ahead to 767. And just a question about the copier lease. 18.5, I don't know anything really about copiers and things like that, but is there a reason we lease rather than own?
Well, it tends to be, I think, more efficient because when you're on the thing, you make a phone call, you've got a contract, you don't have to own the equipment.
Okay.
And I think it's a smoother process, and I don't think it's a terribly difference in price on that.
The entire school system does that.
Yeah.
And it is eye-opening.
It's very.
To find out how much it is to buy one of those things, but
And then
yeah,
they
it's-
Maintain it when something
then they run
breaks,
it.
yeah.
it's crazy, but,
Is this multiple copiers?
This is, this
Yeah.
is multiple copies, not
Okay.
just the main copy.
so I had, a more general question. There are some of those departments, like for instance, the IT administrator, are there people, there are people that have multiple hats
Yeah,
that work for the town.
yeah.
And none of these have names, obviously, but here. So when they see $8,800, that could be on top of somebody else's if they have.
Well, absolutely, in fact, the person that's the IT coordinator is in the room.
Yeah,
doing
that's
IT
what I
work
thought,
right
so,
now.
okay. Okay,
And I bumped it up a little bit because he's spending more time in the Zoom.
yeah, I'm not, I just, that one happened to jump out because it's not enough to pay anybody's bills, but it was done as a loan job, and some of these, do we have, I know we do a lot with the CIP figuring out equipment, but do we have any ideas about long-term, how some of these small positions that are tacked on to other people's full-time positions grow?
Yes.
Do we have a plan? Do we have is there some sort of a projection, like at some point?
Well, you take it, I guess, once it starts to crop up, there's a problem with, for example, we're looking at IT. Right now, is that eventually going to get, as you can see, it's growing.
Yeah.
So eventually, is that going to be into a position where we're gonna have to do something more than like a stipend? So it's one of these things, Jeff, that we can follow.
Okay.
And this is one we're looking at right now. Eventually, as this things get more complicated, we may have to approach it differently.
But how do we follow, like, the person's day, like the percentage of their day that's spent on it, or if they're extending their hours beyond what is reasonable even for a salaried employee, if the job,
Right.
how do we track that?
Well, we track that basically as we refund the position every year. Kyle and I had a discussion on that position this year. How many hours are you spending? What is being changed and that sort of thing. So it goes depending on the person.
Okay.
And so do we have a master plan? No, but we do have a way of tracking it and a way of being able to follow to see if it's getting to be an issue.
Okay.
I mean, something could come up down the road, like if we decided to own our own broadband infrastructure, we'd have to look at that again.
There's all kinds of things that can happen. My position always is you take the path of least resistance, but you also look at it and have it on your radar that at one point in time you might have to come and say, no, this isn't working anymore. We're going to need to do this because it will add much more value to the services.
Right, but
provide, so.
At that time, I know I hate to keep picking on that position, but let's say all of a sudden we decided to fund a full-time IT, that would actually be a hit to our assessor, because he can't apply for 2 full-time jobs. So, I mean, I guess it just seems like something we should, how many of these part-time, I mean, I think that Claire has more than one.
I have, I have one.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, so there are, I mean, there's a few of these. It's just something that I was thinking about.
Yeah, well, it's good. I hadn't been thinking of it, but I will.
Okay.
There you go. I guess it gives me some thought. So.
That's a good point.
Oh, very good.
Okay.
Remember to have that money in the So when it comes back and you do your final votes, and you want to these things, will be there for you.
What is an IT tech fee?
That is, for example, that's the big one.
Oh, that's big.
Yeah, he does the things that Kyle was not able to. Doesn't have to
I need to talk to him again. I'm having a terrible time.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then that'd be another, I forget where it is on this, but like the postage, there's software licenses probably for every department.
Yeah, you could combine.
I mean, you
those.
could, but, again, it would be important that we'd be able to tell where they went, but they could potentially be streamlined in the budget.
Yeah, sure.
Of course, when we saw them all piled up together, how much we were paying for software licenses, we'd probably have a heart attack, but.
Yeah.
They're posted.
So this, I'm assuming that this thing down here, this is Munis, isn't it?
What's that?
The big
What
software license fee?
Yeah, well, yes,
Okay,
800.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And Trio.
Yeah, true, yeah, okay.
And cable internet, $44,000.
Yeah, that is running all of your connections for your internet between the departments. The Munis is hooked up to all of that.
And who do we pay that to?
Time Warner or Spectrum?
$44,000.
Is it consolidated?
Well,
No,
no,
Spectrum,
you're right,
Spectrum.
it's Spectrum.
Consolidated is your phone, that's all it's Spectrum.
You should see what your school is.
I know, I just, a telephone, 16 grand a year, you know? Yeah, I don't wanna look anymore.
Good enough. So overall, it's pretty much,
Yeah, it's pretty flat.
pretty flat. Moved a few things around
Yeah.
for efficiency's sake. Overall, pretty flat.
So far, all the budgets we've looked at, yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty
Yeah,
straightforward.
so what are we're just doing one of these at a time?
And we're doing marina, we're just looking at it, we don't have to.
Okay.
If you have questions, I don't know if, yep, John Lemoyne is here.
Well, I do have a question about the office manager position. Went up quite a lot.
Which page?
That's on the marina budget.
Oh, yeah, because he was hired, that was budgeted for part of the year.
Brand new position last year.
Okay.
And so he's gone up 10% over the time, plus that was beginning.
We started in July.
If you notice that the marina budget actually is down,
Yes.
the reason is that some good work, I'll give Jake some credit on that. He went and looked and he thought those CIP lines were over budgeted. They had so much money there already, so we cut it back.
Right.
So we were able to save, so the marina budget overall is down because we didn't have to put so much into the CIP. That's good.
Yeah, very nice.
It's realistic. I think that's the whole point of having someone look and be real.
There were some formulas that weren't working quite right that got corrected, and essentially we have what we need to fund the marina for a while.
That's awesome.
Was that why one of these lines, the 291 and that went up was quite a lot, but then there were a couple that were eliminated completely?
Yeah.
Okay,
They didn't need any.
that makes, okay, that's why, okay, that makes sense.
$291 went up, preparing, looking towards a potential electric or hybrid truck.
Ah.
Yeah.
What about, line 184, the equipment? It's just, it says equipment, $17,500, up 75%.
Said the marina.
Yeah.
You hear that, John?
No.
Yes, I'm anticipating potentially purchasing one of the cruisers that Chief Willis lets go. Currently, the only vehicle I have, my third employee cannot drive because it's blue lit. And if for some reason me and Adam were somewhere else and something needed to be taken care of over at Bartlett's Landing, he has no current way other than his own personal vehicle to get there.
Okay.
So it would be a one-time bump and it would go back to normal levels after that happened.
Okay.
It's good.
Yep.
Yep.
It does. Yeah. Moving on.
So does it work for you that you read those books and I refill them for your next one, or do you want
Yeah.
That works for me.
Or either that, or you can take them and I can just punch them and send them in your regular packets and you put them in, so it doesn't make any difference to
I
me.
couldn't understand a word you said.
I said, basically, if you want to either leave the books and I refill for the next budget, which will be public safety, or you can take them and I will just punch the budgets and put them in your regular packet and then you can add them yourself.
It depends on if you want to leave your book or take it.
I got it.
I'd like to just leave the book. I like
Yeah,
having
I
it
like
separate
leaving
from
it.
the regular.
I do too, and I looked at what's here, so I'd rather have everything all
I'll
there.
go with the flow, yeah,
I'm good with that.
yeah, thank you.
Okay. So,
Martha's getting punchy.
all right.
That's pretty late.
Okay, did we do justice to the debt budgets?
I looked at them. It makes sense to me.
Yeah, we're happy.
All right. Any other business? No? Okay. I guess I'll read the warrants. Approve and sign treasurer's warrants as shown. AP 2234, town invoice, in the amount of $323,304.21.
Move approval and signature.
Second,
Good. All in favor? Approval, state fees and payroll benefits, AP 2232, AP 2233, PR 2213, in the amount of $181,517.26.
Move approval.
second,
All in favor?
One abstention, please.
Acknowledgement, school payroll and invoices, number 12, $88,757.28.
Move approval or acknowledgement.
second.
All in favor? Thank you. Motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Thanks, Dave.
All right.
All right.
Very